Hello and welcome to It's Free IP. I'm your host Felix Chaplin, and this is a re-upload of a video I originally posted in 2022 about the fictional Chinese-American detective Charlie Chan. I was joined by New York Times bestselling author Xiran Jay Zhao to discuss Charlie Chan's complicated legacy as it relates to Chinese-American representation in the media. As was my wont in 2022, this video begins with a public domain song, so if that's not your cup of tea, you can check the description for the chapters. Lastly, we discussed the Charlie Chan film The Scarlet Clue from 1945 in this video, and if you'd like to get the movie on DVD, you can go to the Ko-fi link in the description and buy it. Every dollar It's Free IP gets strengthens our fight against corporate control of the media, so your support will be greatly appreciated. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Hello and welcome to It's Free IP. I'm your host Felix Chaplin, and as usual, I'd like to start with a song.
When I woke up the other morn, I found a new republic had been born. There was to be democracy in China. We congratulate her, but we know old China too did an awful lot for me and you. Now her freedom's won. Let's thank her for what she's done. China, way out in Asia Minor, no country could be finer beneath the sun. You gave us silk to dress our lovely women, 'twas worth the price. And when we couldn't get potatoes, you gave us rice. We mixed chop suey with your chopsticks. You've taught us quite a few tricks we never knew. We take our hats off to one thing we've seen. Your laundries keep our country clean. China, we owe a lot to you.
The song you just heard was China, We Owe a Lot to You, composed in 1917 by Milton Egger, with lyrics by Howard Johnson, and sung by Fred Field from the Sheet Music Singer YouTube channel. Although this song isn't the most geographically correct because China is nowhere near Asia Minor, this is one of very few public domain songs I've been able to find about Chinese people that doesn't have any racial slurs in it. This song demonstrates that there were at least some artists back in the day attempting to portray Chinese people in a positive light. Just how effective were these attempts? Stick around until the end to hear a discussion with today's guest. On January 1st, 2021, works made in 1925 entered the public domain. F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby received extensive media attention, but another very notable book received no attention at all, The House Without a Key by Earl Durr Biggers. This book was the first in a series of mystery novels that would lead to the creation of a film franchise of about 4 dozen films and introduce the most popular fictional character of the 1930s and 40s, Charlie Chan. Earl Durr Biggers was inspired to write The House Without a Key after visiting Hawaii in 1919, where he met a Chinese-American detective in the Honolulu police named Chang Apana. To go off on a bit of a tangent, Chang Apana was a badass. He was a literal cowboy before joining the Honolulu police, and he preferred to use a bullwhip instead of a gun while on duty. Some notable stories about him include the time he single-handedly arrested 40 people for illegal gambling while armed only with his trademark bullwhip, and the time he was thrown out of a second-story window of an opium den and landed on his feet. I strongly recommend doing additional research about him. Back to the topic at hand, Earl Durr Biggers wrote 5 more Charlie Chan novels from 1926 to 1932, and The House Without a Key was adapted into a film serial in 1926. The somewhat good news is that the role of Charlie Chan was played by Asian American actors in the first 3 film adaptations of the novels. Japanese American actors George Kua and Kamiyama Sojin played the role of Chan in the first 2 film adaptations, but both of these are unfortunately lost. The only surviving film in which Charlie Chan is played by an Asian American actor is the 1929 talkie titled Behind That Curtain, in which he's played by Korean actor E.L. Park. Perhaps more unfortunately, even if the first 2 film adaptations had survived, the actors probably wouldn't have made much of an impact because Charlie Chan was reduced to a minor character in all these movies. In Behind That Curtain, Chan only gets a single mention early on in the film, and he doesn't actually appear until the final 15 minutes. In 1931, Charlie Chan would finally be the main character in his own movie. The catch? He would be played by Swedish-American actor Warner Oland. By this point, Warner Oland had already played several Asian characters in films, usually as a villain. It is pretty ironic that he went from playing characters like Dr. Fu Manchu, who was created explicitly to contribute to the negative portrayal of Chinese people, to playing as Charlie Chan, and it's the latter role that he is most remembered for today. Warner Oland starred in a total of 15 Charlie Chan films, and he apparently started to, quote-unquote, become the character. Much of the public believed that he actually was Chinese, including the Chinese government officials that greeted him when he visited China. He learned Cantonese and would conduct interviews in character as Charlie Chan, often referring to Warner Oland in the third person. When Warner Oland died in 1938, the role of Charlie Chan was taken up by another white actor, Sidney Toler. Having starred in 22 Charlie Chan movies, Sidney Toler died in 1947, and the mantle was passed on to yet another white actor, Roland Winters. By this point, Charlie Chan's popularity was waning, decreased budgets led to lower production value, and the film franchise had died by the release of Roland Winters' sixth appearance as the character in 1949. A TV movie was made in 1971 called The Return of Charlie Chan, with the titular character being played by yet another white guy, Ross Martin. The character was seen one more time on the silver screen in 1981 in the film Charlie Chan and the Curse of the Dragon Queen, in which he was played by, you guessed it, another white actor, Peter Ustinov. Charlie Chan's appearances weren't limited to books and films. He appeared in 3 radio shows between 1932 and 1948. In all 3, Charlie Chan was played by white voice actors. A British-American TV show called The New Adventures of Charlie Chan aired from 1957 to 1958. It ran for 1 season with a total of 39 episodes. It shouldn't come as a surprise at all that the titular role was once again played by a white actor, J. Carrol Naish. In 1972, Hanna-Barbera produced the cartoon The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan. It ran for 1 season with a total of 16 episodes, and Charlie Chan was finally played by a Chinese-American actor, Key Luke. Key Luke played as Charlie Chan's number 1 son in the movies starring Warner Oland. Now that the history is out of the way, let's see what free Charlie Chan IP is available to us. As I mentioned earlier, The House Without a Key, and by extension, the character Charlie Chan, is now in the public domain. The second Charlie Chan novel, The Chinese Parrot, entered the public domain at the beginning of 2022. There are 7 Chan movies in the public domain. One of these films, Charlie Chan's Secret from 1936, is the only one starring Warner Oland. 4 of these films starred Sidney Toler. The Scarlet Clue from 1945, Dangerous Money, Dark Alibi, and The Trap, all from 1946. Roland Winters stars in the final 2 of the public domain Charlie Chan films, The Chinese Ring from 1947 and The Golden Eye from 1948. After hearing that explanation of the history of Charlie Chan, you can probably see why this character has such a complicated legacy. To help me unpack it all, I have invited a very special guest who makes very informative videos discussing Chinese history and critiquing Asian representation in Western media on their YouTube channel. It is with immense pleasure that I introduce today's guest, Xiran Jay Zhao. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
As you've heard me mention earlier in this episode, Earl Derbiggers created Charlie Chan with the intention of creating positive representation for Chinese Americans. As a member of a privileged group writing about a character who's part of a disadvantaged group in America, do you think his intentions mattered?
Yeah, I think for sure, in his time, it definitely mattered, because at that time, disadvantaged people didn't really have a voice of their own to speak up, right? So it was better than nothing. So I find it very noble that he created Charlie Chan with the intention of giving Chinese Americans better representation.
Yeah, especially since he created Charlie Chan in response to villainous Chinese characters like Dr. Fu Manchu.
Yeah, for sure. So I do find it, admirable that he saw those and was like, no, that's not right. So, even back when it wasn't really, the mainstream thing to be conscious of how you portray these people of color and people from disadvantaged groups, he was like, no, we need, more positive examples. We can't just always cast them as villains. They're just people just like us. And so I'm going to make this Chinese American hero. So I find that really admirable.
Have you watched any of the Charlie Chan movies?
Yeah, I watched Charlie Chan and the Scarlet Clue.
Oh, I love that one. That's actually my favorite one. Do you think that the movie has any redeeming qualities? Because just like all the other surviving movies, Charlie Chan is played by a white actor, or Sidney Toler in this case.
Yeah, I didn't like that part, but I did like how his son was played by an Asian American, and it was really surreal to see actual Asian American representation from 1945, and that was you could tell that was an actual Asian American there, and he spoke a better English than the white guy who played Charlie Chan, and I find that I found that really relatable, just the fact that he spoke better English than his dad, and cause that's my situation. And that's the same kind of situation as a lot of second gen or 1.5 gen immigrants. So I do appreciate how they the climate did not allow for Charlie Chan to be played by an actual Asian actor, but they did find an Asian actor for his son, and so it was really nice to see his son. And also I did like the banter between the characters, especially between the son and his friend, the other assistant, Birmingham. They had some really nice back and forth with those, and I love the comedic moments, and I guess it's a running theme that Birmingham always goes off and does his own thing by the end.
Yeah, that happens in a couple of the movies. In pretty much all the movies where Charlie Chan is with his kids, they're all played by Asian American actors.
Oh, that's awesome.
Charlie Chan canonically has 14 kids.
Oh my god, how? From one wife? Okay, but it's just a thing that he has 14 kids.
If it's any consolation, he only had 10 kids in the cartoon The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan. Anyway, now that Charlie Chan is in the public domain and anyone can use him in their creative works, do you think people should try to bring him back?
I think there's no reason that you shouldn't try. because for sure he's a fascinating character, and it's a shame that like the more like villainous characters are the ones that remained through the cultural consciousness. Like everybody knows about Fu Manchu, so why doesn't everybody know about Charlie Chan?
That's an interesting way to look at it. A lot of people are very quick to write the character off because he was played by white actors in pretty much every movie except the early ones that got lost. In all the popular movies, he was played by white actors, including the ones made in the 70s. One would think they'd learned their lesson by that point and have made an effort to find a Chinese actor, or at least an Asian one, but instead they found a Jewish guy and a Russian guy.
Yeah, so for sure, if we brought him back, like, obviously he would be played by, an Asian actor. And actually, you know, technically it is stereotypical, but I found it fascinating that he was played with, an accent, like a noticeable accent. Like, I know that they're trying to make him seem Chinese, but the fact that, like, his son didn't really have a Chinese accent when speaking English, I did find it, like, it's almost, like, empowering to see this, like, detective character just, like, speaking with an accent. So he's very clearly like first generation, but still like everybody still takes him seriously. If he were revived, I would like the idea of him being played by a first generation Chinese actor. So he like has a noticeable accent, but like that doesn't matter to anyone working with him because he's just so good at his job.
Yeah, let's definitely make sure we no longer have white actors in yellowface playing as Charlie Chan.
Yeah, that's like the one flaw of those movies is because like the rest is very charming. Like I really like the old time Hollywood like costumes and hair. And yeah, it was surprisingly, like, the banter was surprisingly good, and it was just, like, the yellow face was just, like, glaringly distracting.
That's an unfortunate thing about a lot of old movies. A lot of them are really good, but are ruined for modern audiences by something that was socially acceptable at the time that they were made. The old Charlie Chan movies had really good production value, especially the ones with Warner Oland.
Yeah, and, like, in the Scarlet Clue, I was like, oh, they're actually, like, doing some science over here. And the special effects were pretty cool.
Yeah, the science in the movie's pretty outdated. Quick spoiler warning, but there's a part towards the end where they're testing this gas with cigarette smoke, and one of the scientists says, the cigarette smoke itself is harmless, which made me say,
Yeah. I mean, it's like, shaky, for sure, but I appreciate how they, like, try to incorporate science. Because it's, like, 1945.
Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to resurrect the character?
I think for sure it has to be done, by someone of Chinese descent. So, like, it has to be done with a Chinese American, or else it's just gonna continue that cycle of, like, the white person, like, speaking for Chinese Americans. So, I think, yeah, it's up to Chinese Americans themselves to resurrect this character.
Now that we have more detective options than just Sherlock Holmes, we can see a little bit less of him and see more Charlie Chan out there.
I know, right? There's, like, so many iterations of Sherlock Holmes. Like, we don't need more.
Do you have any last words about Charlie Chan?
Yeah, I do appreciate his character and the fact that someone, even back then, like, way back, tried to create positive representation for Asian Americans. So, yeah, my appreciations to Earl Durr-Biggers.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, thanks for inviting me.
That's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. I'm Felix Chaplin, and remember, kids, this show is not legal advice.